There you go. Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can also drink in the shot.
Yes, you can.
It's just coffee and
That's
whiskey.
fine.
It's no big
And
deal.
whiskey, yeah. Can I have some?
I wish.
Rachel, just state your name and affiliation, and we'll get started.
Rachel for the whole of Germany.
Rachel of Germany. Remember when life was so simple? It was like, I am Rachel of Sicily.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I am Rachel of Germany.
But, you know, at least it's Germany. I like it. So, you are, I just saw on Instagram, you said, left vampires to get back to vampires, and you're married to a vampire. So,
It's crazy.
I know. How is it to be back with vampires?
You know, when you put it that way, I love this genre. The vampire genre to me is always, it's become a great piece of the fabric of my life at this point. But if you were to ask me, was I concerned about getting into another vampire show? No. This is a totally different take and understanding of what vampire is. This is a socially relevant, very grounded, you know, as Vampire Diaries was fantasy, sci-fi, very YA, but transcended the YA genre, demographic, and spanned till way late adulthood. It was for everyone, right? But it was the version of vampires that kids could watch with their parents, right? Because at the time, Twilight was on film, and those weren't coming out but every year or so. True Blood was on the air on HBO. Kids couldn't watch True Blood with their parents. That would get really weird very quickly. And so Vampire Diaries filled this sort of parental loophole, this sort of place it perfectly fit. I think V-Wars is that new fit because it's so socially relevant, right? This was written in 2012. Vampire Diaries was written in the early 90s in the Valley in Los Angeles. Jonathan Mayberry, a best-selling author, put together this amazing set of books. Now listen, I have 5 books to mine from. As producers, we have a tremendous amount of information and story to mine from. Dozens of comics, not just for the visual reference, but story and character as well. This show is dealing with things we're really dealing with right now. The way that this disease spreads, because it's a disease, right? Because of rampant glacial deterioration, the ice is melting everywhere. The tundra permafrost is melting. Luther Swan, Dr. Luther Swan, who I play, is a star in the infectious disease world. He spent his life studying infectious disease in hopes of helping save humanity from anything bad, right? Well, the bacteria and the viruses, the pathogens that have been safely locked in ice for millennia, possibly millions of years, are now starting to come to the surface. That's not just in our story. That's out there. And it just so happens that, and I say this sort of like, yay, go sort of sad world with sort of a tear in my eye, but it just so happens that in the launch of this show, right as we're launching this show in 3 weeks, every day new articles are coming out from people in the scientific community stating exactly what we're talking about in this show. The things coming up out of that were once covered in ice are very scary and cause grave concern for the scientific community. And what it means to society is, and Luther Swan says this in the show, what's down there could possibly start a pandemic that makes the bubonic plague look like a chickenpox party. And these are things we don't want in society. We have enough problems. But that's where this comes from, right? So you have this social relevance of the fact that the climate is changing so rapidly, exposing all of this stuff, changing our climates, our oceans, everything, our weather. Then you've also got these other elements that we're dealing with in society. Borders, racism, medicine, disease, fear, politics, the fear of politics, the politics of fear. All of these things that we're And these are just in our own echo chambers. This is happening around the world. Whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or not, you see it, you feel it. And these characters are unknowingly about to be ripped from their lives and catapulted into this world that is changing so rapidly. And listen, Lost did this in a way. Do you remember Lost? Recreating society, rebuilding society, and how does it work? What happens, for me, V-Wars is the great what if. What if this happened in your community? This is a disease like AIDS was. It is indiscriminate. It infects indiscriminately. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what sex you are, how old you are, where you're from, how much money you have. It doesn't matter. And that's what makes me feel like we get to set up this amazing world, you know? And it's grounded. These creatures are scary. They're dangerous. We went through a lot of time and energy and painstaking, like, time of our lives and resources creating this world, you know? So, and the fact that I get to sit here and talk to you, and apparently all of Germany, this means that we're in a place now where all the last 15 months of the hard work, taking time away from our families, our health, destroying our health, and being away from our family and kids pays off, because now we've delivered the show. We still have a lot of work to do in delivering a bunch of effects that we just drop in, but fortunately Netflix and IDW really allowed us to push and expand the time that we had to build the world.
You just said you spent like 15 months, nearly like a year and a half on that. How did you do that with your family? Did you have your family on set with you? You have a 2-year-old baby. And also I read that you went into hospital. What happened? I have to obviously find out about that.
Fortunately, my wife and my family are so insanely supportive. My wife is also building, she has a sustainable jewelry company. I mean, and not just like a side project. This is a company that is growing by leaps and bounds. While we're sitting here talking about V-Wars, she's doing an interview for Forbes right now because her company's growing and changing. She's such a maverick in the sustainability world that Forbes is like, hey, we want to talk to you about it. So not only is she building her company, but she took the baby, because our baby was only 9 months old when I started shooting the show. Tiny baby. And the only role of my little girl's, the only person who can play the role of my little girl's father is me. So I'm not going to be absent. But my wife was so kind and came with me for a while. She agreed to be in the show with me for a little bit, which was I was so grateful for, and she did such an amazing job watching this woman. You know, she's breastfeeding in the trailer, and then we walk out of the trailer, you know, she gives our security guy a nod, like, let's do this, we got this. She walks on the set, crushes it. Everyone's sitting there going, oh my gosh, this powerful performance. And then goes, okay, honey, I love you, I gotta go. Bye, kisses me, goes back, gets the baby, takes her home, you know, puts her down, feeds her, all that stuff. This show, I learned a lot. Listen, the skill sets that I learned from Vampire Diaries, I was able to take and put into this show as not just an actor, but as a producer, as a director. And my producing partners, and one of them is here with me now, we go everywhere now and do everything together because our lives are so linked, because we still have, there's still thousands of things to do before the 3 weeks when we launch. You push yourself. And we learned a great deal, and I won't have to push myself that hard again. Sometimes your body, you just push so hard, your body says, I need a break. I'm done.
So you hit a break.
Yeah. So you just take a little trip to the ER, get some fluids, have a cup of tea, and they send you home. But it just, if anything, is a barometer, a gauge for how much time and energy it takes to produce something like this, where we want to tell a story that means something to people. I don't want to just put something out there. So I want to get under your skin, under your fingernails, create visual juxtapositions where you are fighting the internal conflict of a character when they do something that you disagree with, but you realize they're in a state, they don't really have a choice. That internal conflict, I saw it with Lost. I saw it with Vampire Diaries. These were tentpole, big water cooler shows, and I've only been on those types of shows, and I want to bring that and make V-Wars that, because the world that we have the capacity to open up is so vast and so unique and so relevant that that's what really drives us.
You were just saying, Lost was pretty much the first big show where the binge watching started, right?
Right.
Did you ever think that that is going to be our future? And also, how did Lost change your life? Because from that, Vampire Diaries, you couldn't go anywhere anymore. You were followed like...
Lost changed my life a great deal. It was honestly, it was like the biggest thing since sliced bread at the time. And it's still so relevant. It was about, the things that always blew my mind about Lost when we were on set, thinking about recreating a society, recreating government, recreating food production, recreating communication, recreating all of it. And in V-Wars, that's about to unfold in real time in front of you. This disease is going to spread so quickly. And very much in a 28 days later feel. You remember how fast it was changing? We don't have Danny Boyle, but we will find the next Danny Boyle or Daniela Boyle. This show, the other great part about it is not that it's just going to change rapidly, but we get to see what happens when people become food. What happens when half of a family has turned and half of a family hasn't? We get to see what civil war starts to look like, but from the ground up. And it's tearing families apart. Much like a lot of things in our society are tearing families apart. What happens when commercial airlines can no longer function? They can't operate. What happens to the economy? What happens... these big questions you have. What happens when telecommunications companies can't function properly because people have turned and the companies aren't being paid? What happens to the mortgage crisis? These are all like really nuanced, unique things that when society starts to fall, we've never seen it. But what happens when there are so many Bloods that they need legal representation? And how do we fix it? And at the core of it, my character, Luther Swan, is going to go down his own rabbit hole and find a way to solve these massive problems. And in the beginning of the show, he's just a good, normal guy. Coming off of Vampire Diaries, playing Damon Salvatore for 8 years, and still talking about it now 10 years later. He was very fun, snarky. He wore head to toe John Varvatos. He was kind of an asshole, too. Damon Salvatore was really a prick. But you loved him because he had this vulnerability to him, right? I so desperately just wanted to play a character whose superpower was just being a good dad. His superpower was being a scientist. That's why he was a superhero. And we learned something very valuable, which is people don't want an ordinary hero. They want an extraordinary hero. And so for Michael Fain and for Luther Swan, we really wanted to retool and put them in situations where they are forced to be extraordinary, even while they're just being beaten down from every angle. Which, by the way, I am a parent now, and I look at parents, especially moms. You know, for me, parents are superheroes. Especially single parents are super duper duper heroes. This world is about to deteriorate so fast, but we get to show it at a global level, right? So we also get to bring in people from all over the world, amazing characters, whether it's Latin America, whether it's Europe, Germany, India, Asia, you know, people that matter. You walk down the street, you walk into a meeting, it's people from all over the world. That global aspect is what is so fun for me. Because at the end of the day, what makes communities, cultures, countries, families, individuals, friends, brothers, sisters, and their stories, I think, intersecting and intertwining under the umbrella of this ever-changing, quickly deteriorating world. I think it's going to create some really cool socially relevant stories.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
That's all we get?
And then we have, I want to stay, but they're telling me I have to go. But then our words comes to the